Welcome to NF Show, NF Magazine's official weekly podcast. This is episode number 41, 8 by 8 and I will be your host in this episode. My name is Noah, and in the co-host chair is the ever-wonderful Evan Campbell.
Ooh, I like ever wonderful. That is a new way to describe me. I like new ways to describe me, as long as they're positive.
We were just having some pre-show talk, and there was some not so positive. But we were sharing, and it was healing. And now we're better. See how Evan looks. He's happy. We are really happy about this episode in particular because we have some great stuff to talk about. There was Nintendo's surprise direct. Well, I guess it wasn't officially called a direct, all about Smash Brothers for Wii U. Finally, we were going to get all the information, all the final information for the Wii U version of Super Smash Brothers that's coming up. At least that's how it was posited. It was 50 facts about Super Smash Brothers. So we definitely have to talk about that. We may not cover every single one of the 50 facts because some of them were kind of overlapping, in my opinion. But that's going to be our main topic for discussion. And we also have a ton of feedback yet again this week, which is great. We've got emails, we've got comments, and so Evan is going to be driving the chariot through that segment. But before we get into talking about the Smash Brothers Direct, let's talk about Amiibos. I get into work this morning and I get an instant message from Evan. I think it was just a link that was just popped in. And Evan, being a couple hours or an hour at least ahead of me, is always ahead of the curve and the latest developments and news. And I'm just kind of bleary-eyed getting into work. I've just signed on to Instant Messenger, and he's like, blah! What is this? And it's a picture of the Wii Fit Trainer Amiibo. And Evan asked me, do you want to say what you asked me?
Go ahead.
Do you want that Wii Fit Trainer so much now that it has a big ugly cast around its foot? And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, there's this foggy chunk of plastic. It kind of reminds me of when my ankle was broken earlier this year and I had a gigantic boot, or like at first I had a gigantic cast and then I had a gigantic mechanical boot, except it wasn't transparent. If it was, that would have been really cool. But the Wii Fit Trainer, apparently she's very delicate and fragile, and unlike the previous version that we had seen in all the announcement marketing and renders and images that we've seen of these Amiibos, she had no extra support, but the final version of her apparently has this gigantic glob of foggy plastic around half of her foot. But that's not all, because there are subtle differences on many of the launch Amiibos, such as the gold detailing on Peach's dress. And the original version that we saw was actually it was kind of etched out of her dress, and in this one's just a sticker, and her eyes and her lips weren't perfectly lined up, and then Kirby's eyes were kind of off-center from his mouth in one of the pictures. But worst of all, definitely the biggest travesty, we actually didn't see all of them, but I could see in the background the Donkey Kong. He's supposed to be midair jumping, but he has a big blob of a square of foggy plastic underneath him supporting him. But no, it is Link that has the biggest travesty of difference, the worst difference of the final model, what we've seen. He has a yellow rectangular block that's clear, that's descending from the front of his skirt. It's not actually going up the back like it was in the original model that we saw. There's actually this yellow block supporting him and going up the front of his skirt, which, Evan, what was it that you were calling it?
I was calling it P yellow. There's a P yellow stick supporting Link on his Amiibo. I don't know why that color was chosen, because I think not Falco, but Fox has like a blue rectangle supporting his dashing pose. And it was just kind of all of these things that everyone had some questions when they saw Link at E3, the Link Amiibo that is, on this very slender, clear plastic stick. Like, there's no way that's going to hold up, or it looks like it could easily break in half. And this is the answer for mass production. This, not only is it just a solid yellow color, it's kind of translucent. It is very unappealing to me. And it just, some of them I think look good too. I mean, it's understandable that the concepts when it comes to mass productions, there's going to be um, things that don't actually live up to what was originally expected. And I think Kirby, except for the ones that sometimes have the off-center eyes, I think Kirby looks pretty good. I think that Pikachu looks great. The
Mario
Sam,
looks good.
yeah, Mario looks good. Samus looks good. Yoshi looks good. But it's very hit or miss. And I'm just so confused why Nintendo decided to stick with these designs where people are like mid action and have to be supported by sticks. Why not put their feet squarely on the thing so we don't have these weird colored stick combination? I don't know. Do people out there want these? Am I in the minority, you think? And people that doesn't bother them at all?
I was kind of surprised by some of the people who were defending it, and that they were just grousing about it and saying, "Eh, it doesn't look that bad. Stop overreacting. This is what happens when things go into mass production." But these are significant. They are impossible to miss, especially since they're colored and or they're foggy in the case of the Wii Fit Trainer. It it's very distracting, and it makes it look much cheaper. I mean, I would already expect that, for instance, if you look at the original model of Peach's figure and you look at her hand, it has very thin, delicate fingers, and then when you look at the version of her hand in the production one, it's kind of blobby. I would expect something like that. Not as fine of a cast in the mold, and maybe the paint isn't always totally perfect, but a gigantic chunk of plastic that's colored that's thrown on to the front of the figure, no less, is incredibly distracting, and it makes them look cheaper quality. It, for one thing, says, well, we came up with designs that were so delicate and fragile that we have to totally band-aid them with these giant chunks of plastic, and it's, to me, $13 for a 4-inch figure or however tall those are is a significant premium, and I want them to look as good as the Disney Infinity figures look, for instance. They have incredible paint jobs. They always look great. They don't have awkward supporting chunks of plastic that I can remember. And here Nintendo is coming along and trying to charge the same amount of price. And then if I were to compare them, just strictly compare a Disney Infinity figure against one of these Amiibos, I would say the Amiibo looks much more amateur compared to the Disney ones. And I think it's a valid issue. And I think Nintendo fans are inherently trained to have people complain about stuff. And so there's always the Nintendo apologist force that immediately springs to action, especially on message boards. And they're like, what's the devil's advocate stance? Here it is. Boom. But I can't see people who have been really excited about collecting Skylanders toys and Disney Infinity toys, and then potentially would be target market here for the Amiibos, and thinking, oh yeah, this is totally the same quality. I'm totally cool with how this looks. Whatever. I think it's a bit of a stumble.
Well, yeah, and one of the problems with doing characters based off Super Smash Brothers is you kind of have this art styles from all these different games. Sakurai does a great job making it look right in game, but trying to bring this into toys to game model, like Disney Infinity, when the first game came out, they had this huge talk about bringing all these characters but making them fit under this very similar aesthetic design. And Skylanders obviously is there, and that's something that's not there at all with these Skylanders figures. You have very
With the
dainty
Amiibo
figures,
figures.
whether it's like Link or Wii Fit Trainer, and these bulkier characters like Donkey Kong or Kirby, and it comes across in their designs. And I'm very curious. It's obvious that Nintendo is going to do more Link Amiibo figures based on other series. I wouldn't be surprised for
Mhm.
the next, like, if Amiibo is successful, which I believe it will be, for like the next Mario Kart or whatever. I think Nintendo will learn and not put them in these positions or poses where you need a stick to support them. I mean, why can't Link be on 2 feet? Maybe they think, well, then Marth and Link will look too similar, but it's not the poses that's there and that's going to differentiate them. It's the characters themselves. And I think it was a huge miss by Nintendo to do these weird midair poses and have them supported by these different colored sticks. I just don't understand it. But that said, thankfully Samus doesn't have a clear cast on her or anything. I was looking at a picture earlier. It looks like that she has her 2 feet on, even though she's not like a super bulky character, but it looks like a solid build. So my intentions are still on track for that. But you never answer the question: is Wii Fit Trainer someone you're still planning on getting, or is that kind of swayed your opinion?
I still like the idea of the character, and I, I'd like it from the perspective of I'd like to level up a Wii Fit trainer in the
Yeah.
game and put it on and actually use the amiibo as originally designed. And I think she's a funny figure, but she's definitely lost a lot of her appeal with the chunkiness of the design. It's just not the quality level that I want or expect. So yeah, I've definitely cooled my interest a little bit on it, which is a shame. But I'm hoping that there were several figures that I was looking forward to potentially acquiring. So Wii Fit Trainer is not the only one,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that some of the other ones, maybe particularly the ones that are launching in December, won't have that issue. But we'll see. Yeah. Listeners and viewers out there in the audience, please let us know what you think. Have you checked out the pictures yet? And if you haven't, go and look them up. Look for, I guess, production run amiibos, or just do a search or something like that. Or if you're on NeoGAF regularly, you've probably already seen it, or if you've seen it on Twitter. And tell us what you think. Are they do you have any issues with it, or do you have no issues whatsoever, or are you kind of bummed out, but you think, all right, it's okay, I'm gonna still get some. Maybe I won't put them in my my figurine display case or something. I don't know. You can tell us via email by writing show@nfmagazine.com, or you can leave a comment below this video here over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/nfmagazine. That's all we're going to say about Amiibo. I debated calling this Amiibo Gate because that's what, whenever there's a crisis, you throw a gate on the end of it. But so far, I mean, it's not, they're not actually in our hands. This isn't like a huge, like, oh my goodness. So I'm not going to call it that. But it did cross my mind, and I bet it crossed some of your minds out there too. Let's see how they turn out. And if anything, I mean, I really appreciate what Nintendo's trying to do, really cool dynamic poses, because hey, this is Smash Brothers, and let's do these really cool action poses. Let's not make them look like regular statues. Let's make them look like they're about to come to life. And after all, we've rendered all of these figurines in Smash, and that's what they look like in the trophy section, stuff like that. I've noticed that in the screenshots and videos that I've seen. So they're kind of locked into it now, but I'm hoping that future generations, they've learned their lesson. They're like, oh, we wanted to commit to this really cool design. We thought we could support it with the stick, and then we found out during production that it doesn't work. Now we have to use these huge chunks of plastic. I'm sure they're as bummed out as we are. I don't think that this was Nintendo's original plan to do some kind of bait and switch. But now going forward, hopefully the sculptors and the designers will all get on the same page and say, all right, let's do something that looks cool and exciting, but that doesn't require some garish looking support. Or if we do a support, we do it in a much more discreet and integrated way. Because there are figures out there. There's lots of figures out there that have cool poses that don't require that funky Band-Aid solution. But that's all we're going to say about Amiibo. All right, no more. Evan, are you okay with moving on from Amiibo?
Well, we haven't talked about the newest Amiibo news as well, though, that Link is now going to be compatible with Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, you saw what I tweeted about that news last week. And if you follow me on Twitter, I am twitter.com/thisisnoah. I said whoop-de-doo when it happened because I've become so frustrated to hearing about, oh, Amiibo's going to work with Captain Toad. Oh, Amiibo's going to work with Hyrule Warriors. Oh, we'll tell you the details maybe a week before the game comes out. I don't care what games they're compatible with if we're not being told how they're used. And we've been sold on this concept that Amiibos are supposed to be really incredible enhancements to games, and they're not just in Smash Brothers. They're being used in some way that you can level it up, and there's a memory card in there, and you can do some cool things by have the character train and fight against other players, blah blah blah. But what about all these other games? Is it truly going to be something interesting, or should we just copy and paste however it's working for Smash into any game that we hear that it's compatible with? I don't think that's the intention, but it's just such a hollow proclamation, especially for a game that came out over a month ago, and it's like they're not building up marketing to it for any reason. It's just tell us what it is. Give us some incentive to be even more excited about the figures, especially now that we know that they're going to look potentially pretty clunky. Tell us about the functionality. It's just silly news, and it's just it's kind of like, oh hey, we're over here. Oh yeah, this is happening with Amiibo. We can't give you any information yet, but we'll just give you a tweet worth of news essentially. I don't care. Give
Well,
me.
I definitely understand your complaints. What I've found remarkable about it is Hyrule Warriors was never listed as one of the games that was going to be covered. So it's kind of cool to see this game that, like you said, has been out for a month or more, getting this post-release update to Amiibo, and it opens up, I feel like, the possibilities to other prior games that maybe are a couple months old or been out there for a while. Maybe they could get Amiibo support too, especially if they're still selling well. So could we see something with like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze or anything like that? Could that get amiibo support? And then secondly, it is the fact that a lot of people get concerns, rightfully so, whenever Nintendo has any kind of peripheral device, whether it's the balance board or anything like that, that it's going to just work with one main game and the other functionality is going to be just poorly implemented. And I feel like we're starting to get more and more games kind of added to the Amiibo fold that it's showing that Nintendo is serious about this. And hopefully it is content that is meaningful. Like you said, it could be throwaway stuff. It could mean nothing. Having the Link Amiibo may just give you a free DLC pack. That's like buy this. It's a value add, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Or they could do something where you put Link on it, and Link will fight with you. Like there's a two-player mode, but it's controlled by the AI. I think there's many different ways they can go, but I think it's cool to see games already released getting updated for Amiibo support. So I wonder if it's easy to do that because Hyrule Warriors was a game that I think just a couple of months ago, Koei Tecmo was asked about, and they're like, "No, we will not support Amiibo." So something's changed between then and now. And secondly, I think it for people who are on board the Amiibo hype train and are purchasing every single one, it looks like these figures will work with more than just Smash. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of strategy plays off for Nintendo and how we see where if we get to the point where if every Nintendo first party game it's like, well, how does Amiibo work with that?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the really good points to keep in mind is that Skylanders toys, Disney Infinity toys, often work with only one game or two games. And what Nintendo is doing is a little bit different in that they're allowing not only multiple games to be supported, but they're totally different types of games. It's not like, oh, we have this sandbox game and this sandbox game and this sandbox game, and they're different, but you're using the same figure for it, because that's kind of what the Infinity and Skylanders Toys series are about. They're toy box games, sandbox games. Then you drop the character in, and then that gives you content for that character. So it is cool that first of all we're getting potentially a lot of different game support. It's also cool that retroactively games could have it added in. And then it makes that $13 potentially a little bit easier to swallow, regardless of how the figure looks. What you're actually getting interactively in the game is pretty cool. So I'm glad that you brought up all those objective points, but I still need the information on how,
Yeah.
because otherwise it's a very hollow proclamation, regardless if it's retroactive or not.
Oh, I agree. And they're opening about Amiibo with Super Smash Brothers, but yeah, we're what? We're less than a month away from Amiibo being
Yeah.
on store shelves. And we've had some really awesome listeners and viewers tweet pictures at Target kind of getting prepared for it or showing the designs for it. So we're right on the doorstep of this happening. And I think we basically have seen everything that Amiibo can do in Super Smash Brothers now. You can level it up. It looks like there's a little cool few twists thrown in there by Sakurai, like you can get presents during matches or visiting a friend's house and everything like that. But it's not going to be the most revolutionary thing out there with how they're going to work. But seeing how they work with other stuff, I mean, that is Nintendo's big difference, like you said, between Disney Infinity and Skylanders. This doesn't just work with one type of game. This works across a spectrum of our first party games and maybe possibly in the future like third party collaborations.
Hmm.
So that's what Nintendo needs to start selling us on. But I'm guessing how Nintendo works is they're very much not only in marketing their games and everything else, it's they really like to string along the announcements, and I mean it's like learning about Smash Brothers a less than a month before it comes out. They like to do things one step at a time, and we're gonna learn about it just we're gonna learn about it after Christmas. Nintendo's big thing is their characters are here and they work with Smash. I think that's all we're gonna learn about this year. It's not gonna be until after the new year that we finally learn how they're actually gonna work with more games than that.
You think that'll be the case even for Hyrule Warriors?
If it's actual meaningful content, yes. I mean, I guess I could see like a late December, but I could see it just being like if you buy Link or Zelda, you can get a free pack unlocked, like a free $7 pack, which would be really cool. And I think that's another option that Nintendo has with these. And people may boo-hoo it because there's not like the actual in-game activity, but if you buy a Samus character, it comes with a Metroid eShop code, so you get the original game on the eShop. I think there's a lot of ways they can do value add in these Amiibo, or give you like a 50% discount. I think there's a lot of things they can do to make these super enticing, on top of them just being having Nintendo character statues in your house.
Listeners and viewers out there, let us know what you think. We are now going to officially move on from the Amiibo topic. Evan, like it or not. So we can talk more about Smash Brothers. Actually, we want to talk about the Wii U Direct, Nintendo Direct. It wasn't formally called that in some
50
areas.
fact extravaganza.
Yeah, 50 facts, and it even went overboard. There was actually, I think, 52 or something, which was nice because it just kept going and going and going. And we did get some additional surprises. We did get some additional clarifications. There was some really cool stuff in there. One of the most significant things, and I liked how this was announced during the show, was that, hey, look, you can play it with 5 people. No, wait, you can play with 6 people. No, wait, you can actually play Smash Brothers with 8 people. One caveat being that only in certain stages can you do that because you don't want it to get too zoomed out and too small, and the character's too small. But it's pretty cool that we can have potentially up to 8 people running around. It'd be completely chaotic.
Yeah, 8 players is such a fun thing. And I think this is one way that Amiibo kind of comes into play, especially if you had 4 friends that had Amiibo, you could use the 4 Amiibo to kind of fill it out for the 8 player battles. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one cool thing. But 8 player battles really just changes everything up. And it's going to be one of those curious things to see if the competitive community kind of picks up the mantle with 8 player Smash modes, or how much fun it is to have. But anytime you have an 8 player party game, and especially something as hectic as Smash, it's just a really welcome surprise, and it was really cool. It's a bummer, obviously, about online multiplayer, but it's kind of understandable. I mean, most fighting games that are online are just 1 versus 1, so the fact that they're just kind of relegating it to local is, in this case, it's understandable for me and okay.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably the biggest surprise and the most welcome one from the event.
I would agree with you on that. And they took some time to also lovingly go over the stages that are going to be included, the music the music that's going to be included, and how much more content all around this game is going to have, which I think all of us were expecting. And that also meant finally revealing the Master Hand stuff, the Crazy Hand stuff, and also this new party fighting game mode called Smash Tour. So that's the exclusive mode for the Wii U version of Smash Brothers as compared to the 3DS version Smash Run. And it looks like it takes place on a variety of different types of game boards. There are these landscapes that kind of mash together all these different environments, and then you have your Miis run around on the game board, and certain challenges come up, and you have to gather fighters as you go around the board. And then the fighters that you have become your stock. The fighters that you've collected, they become your stock when you actually battle your friends in the game, and you have to use them in the order that you've collected them. So there's all these neat little things these little rules and tricks that go into it, and I'm really intrigued to see how it goes, because something that I've always loved about Smash is that it's really accessible as a party game. People sit down, boom, let's get in, let's fight. Will people like this other presentation, this other way of getting into battles, of gathering stat boosts, gathering characters as they go around the board, and then fighting each other in these battle royales? Or will it be too much put in between the core appeal of the game, which of course is the battles? I don't know. What did you think, Evan? Do you think it could be pretty popular, or is it going to be kind of like Smash Run, where people think, oh, some people like it and they think it's okay, but a lot of other people are just like, I've tried it, but I don't play it much.
Yeah, Smash Run seems to be pretty divisive, especially with our audience. Smash Tour, the details seem very vague. I wasn't quite comprehending exactly how are you rolling dice, how you're moving around the board. It looked very like computer controlled in that aspect, and then you're getting into these cool fights with all these different kind of options unlocked, like you can build up your stats and everything. And I think it just kind of depends. Will this be like a Mario Party like system, how it goes, a little slower? Is this going to be super quick pace, which is probably the more likely scenario because that's how Sakurai seems to operate in all of his games. But I feel like it was pretty hard to kind of,
Get a feel for it.
yeah, exactly. Just from, I think, like the 30 or 45 seconds. I think it could be really cool addition, but I'm not sold either way at this point.
Something else that you can do with your friends that's pretty cool in this game is you can create your own custom tournaments, which I thought was a great tip of the hat to the growing competitive multiplayer scene for Smash Brothers in the esports realm. It's not quite esports specific, but it is neat that you can actually have tournaments and you can have ladders and ranks and have people fight through them, and you can set different types of rules and customize exactly what are the criteria for winning. And it's neat, and it could be a great way for people to do local matches and have their own pretend esports session with friends or with people in their neighborhood as they get to prepare to, like, I'm going to ascend the ranks and actually take my game to the real world and get into the major competitions. It was kind of neat. What do you think of it, Evan?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a big plus, and it seems cool. It seems almost like that Nintendo is going to also be hosting online tournaments by using this mode, which will be really cool as well. But it is a great addition to Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. And yeah, if you've got friends over for a weekend, you could do a tournament. I'm sure there's a lot. Like I remember getting with my friends, especially like in middle school, spending the night or like at a big birthday
Mm-hmm.
celebration or anything like that, having 8 to 16 people and being able to have this tournament where it can all be done in game. And I think that's the big thing. Like, yes, you could have done this on a piece of paper or whatever, but that you can do this all in game is really great. And yeah, I think it's going to help kind of the esports scene, but I think it could have a big impact online as well, especially if Nintendo has weekends where they're hosting tournaments. And I don't know if they'll get into like the kind of contest and prizes or how they'll do rewards for that, but a lot of cool things.
Something else that was brought up, and I'm glad that they took the time to acknowledge it as one of their 50 facts, is that there will be voice chat support in Super Smash Bros. For you and your friends when you're online, but much like it was in some other games, it's only allowed within the lobby before and after the match, because Nintendo is concerned about issues with lag and streaming all of the action that's going on in the fighting game. They have not included voice chat support during the matches themselves.
That
And
is the biggest cop out answer ever by Nintendo. Like it's just getting to the point where it's embarrassing. And no, you kind of gave me a rough time on Twitter because you're like, "Oh, no voice chat." And my expectations are just so low that it was like, yeah, this is what's going to happen when it comes to Nintendo Online. But coming out and being like, "Oh, the lag that would be caused from all the bandwidth being used up by you all talking in between those matches, it's just we cannot deal with that." And it just makes me want to be like, it's fine if you don't have voice chat at this point. Just be like, we're so behind in online aspects of the console that we don't like. You shouldn't expect it from us. I mean, that's the honest answer that's coming out there. And for people that haven't used this voice chat option in Mario Kart 8, A, it sounds terrible, and B, it's just the most pointless thing ever. You want to be talking with your friend while you're playing. That's the most exciting thing. It's not these like 30-second intervals every 5 minutes where you're like, oh, let's do this. Especially if you're in online mode and playing with strangers, possibly. If you like, and this may not even be an option, which wouldn't surprise me, but you like, no, we got together and we're like, oh, let's do team battles together online and play other people. Like, we want to be strategizing while we're playing a match, or we just want to be talking and having that communication because it's a social thing to do. And it drives me nuts. It's really disappointing.
well, I'm glad to hear you take that stance, because the first thing I thought of when I was listening to this is I just saw Evan's face in my mind. And I'm like, Evan is not going to like this. I know I don't like this. And I have to acknowledge that yeah, it's good we have voice chat somewhere, but it is still behind the times because being able to react and say like, "Oh my gosh, that was incredible," or like, "Oh, I'm about to get you," and or come on, and come and try to get me over here, see if you can knock me off this platform. That's what it adds such a layer of fun to the game, and that's what's so fun about being in local multiplayers because you can have that real-time banter without a headset connected to your head, of course, but technology could facilitate something similar to that. But unfortunately, this game is not going to be it. And I'm starting to wonder if it's actually a, a shortfall in the actual console hardware. Maybe there's something in there that isn't capable of handling it. Is it really the programming, or is there something in the console? Because at this point, I don't know if we're going to see any Wii U game that supports from at least from I don't know from Nintendo that supports chat during a Frenzy primary game mode, unless it's going to be some kind of mahjong game or something. That would be funny. What if it
Nintendo
were a mahjong game and you could only talk before and after, but you couldn't talk during the mahjong game?
Nintendo screwed up by not having any kind of voice chat system at a system level. I mean that's the crux of this situation, and Sony just got so much criticism that the party chat functionality wasn't on PlayStation 3 for a half decade, and that Nintendo somehow didn't notice this or didn't realize it and think, you know what, at a very basic level, we should just have voice chat. Anyone on your friends list, you can do this really crappy video app thing on our system that you can't just pick up mid application. You actually have to go into it and have everything shut off. We'll
Mm.
let you video chat with your friends on that, but we won't let a basic just streaming video call, or sorry, excuse me, phone call go on behind the background. And I think if that was installed, there wouldn't be these bandwidth situations or
Hmm.
anything like that. And instead, we're just going to let each game be its own separate thing, which it can work. It worked in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. It's worked in the Call of Duty games, but it's never been A, that great a quality, and B, it's always a band-aid solution. And it's just, as someone, especially for maybe our younger audience members know, it's probably easier for you to get a group with your friends to play, but for someone like timing gets more limited as you get older, and a lot of your friends are possibly in different locations, or you've moved away and you're in different locations from them too, or even if you live in the same town, it's hard to find time to, on top of gaming, find time to drive to each other's house or whatever and get things set up. So it just makes my social experiences playing games with Nintendo more and more limited because they don't give me the options to do it. I not only do I like hitting Noah out of the ring in Super Smash Brothers and telling him how terrible he is at the game, but it's nice to keep up with your friends and just have a conversation with them and get to know what they're up to. I mean, that's part of the experience there too. And I know that we rail on this, and some people out there are just like, oh my god, we get it. You guys don't like that Nintendo doesn't have voice chat, but it is a crucial thing for me the older and older I get. And the fact that Nintendo somehow doesn't get this when every single platform out there has it. And it is like, it's just you know it's going to be there. No one has to come out. No other gaming company comes out, Noah, and is like, voice chat. It's only partially going to be in the game. They don't even mention voice chat because it's just there at a system level or whatever else. And I just, you can tell it makes me visibly upset.
Well, let's move on to happier times for Evan and I, and for everybody's sake. But thank you, Evan, for expressing your point of view. I think you do it always very well and eloquently. Uh, Stage Creator returns in this version of Smash, and what's even cooler about doing it on Wii U is that, of course, you've got the gamepad and you've got the stylus, and you can just freehand draw platforms. You can apply hazards to the platforms. There are some constraints in terms of how many designs. There's 5 different sets of designs that you can use in terms of the platforms and the backgrounds. And I think there's potentially a limit in terms of how, kind of like how much you can construct in the level. I'm not sure.
Like an energy bar or something that kind of depletes as you throw more stuff on the screen, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that something like that is in there. But either way, I remember being really interested in seeing people's custom stage creations on the Wii version of Smash. And so what will be happening on the Wii U version with the ability to freehand draw platforms. Things will be much more organic or artistic or symbolic, potentially. It could be really neat. Did you ever create any stages in the Wii version?
I've never been someone that creates stages or anything. Playing Minecraft is the first time that I feel like I like want to actually construct something. But
Hmm.
in most games that have like the create a map or whatever, I've never really gotten into it. I just want to play the game, and that's how it was with Super Smash Bros. Brawl. But the one cool thing about the gamepad is just it's not like something where you draw like a squiggly line and it's just like, okay, you made a line. You can really get these minute details in these designs, and I think it's going to open it up where we see some really cool stages being built with the gamepad. I was really impressed by the versatility of the stage creator mode in this new Smash Brothers game.
Yeah. If there's anybody out there in the audience who's had some fun times creating stuff in the Wii version of Smash and has some ideas of how you will partake of stage creation in the Wii U version, let us know. I want to hear what was your coolest accomplishment in creating a stage and what's something that you think that you can take to the next level or that you're hoping that you can create in the Wii U version. If one of you out there happens to be one of those talented creator folks, much like Evan, am similar. I'm much more of a put me in the world. I don't want to make it. I just want to play in it type of person. But there's a group of people out there, a set of people who are just builders and constructors, and they can do incredible things with tools like this. And so I'm kind of excited to
We
see
can
what
be,
it turns into.
yeah, sorry, we can be free riders, no, and just dump on all that goodness created by other people. I just when you were talking that, I pictured us like just smacking our hands on the table. Let us play, let us play. I
More
want to
stages, more stages.
build.
Not happy yet.
I I'll be honest though that you can just draw everything and you're not working with this clunky controller interface and everything. I will tinker around with it more than I would if this was announced for like when it was announced for Brawl or whatever. It did catch my eye, and I don't know if it did for you as well.
I think between this and the Mario Creator, I'm a little bit more interested in the Mario Creator game, which of course
Mm.
is a totally different game, and who knows when it's coming out. We'll probably find out the week before it does. But Smash, I guess what's kind of cool is you don't actually have to put potentially as much work into creating a Smash level because you have a contained little box. You draw out your platforms, and then you give it a go. You give it a try. All right, I'll put my items over here or whatever. Whereas with the Mario Creator, you would probably want to make a full-on multi-screen level. That'll take more time. So maybe I'm biting off more than I can chew by thinking about doing that. Okay, yeah, I will definitely toy with the level creator in Smash, but hmm, I'm much more of a consumer in this stance, unfortunately. Something else that was really cool, and I thought it probably was my favorite part of the direct on Smash, was the announcement of the masterpieces within the game, which is basically a set of virtual console demos included
Mm.
within Smash. Uh, I think it's one or two games, potentially multiple games from a franchise representing the characters in the game. I don't know if there's a game for every single character. It seems primarily to be tied to, well, do we have that game for sale on the virtual console? All right, let's conclude a demo
Yeah.
of it. But still, I love museum type games, whether it's pinball museum games or like the Namco museum games, the Capcom collections, Mega Man collections. I love stuff like that. And more than ever, this kind of establishes Smash not only as a really fun game and a great way to just mash a bunch of different Nintendo concepts and franchises together, but it truly can act even beyond the trophies as kind of a nostalgic homage and tribute to Nintendo's history, and it lets you actually try those games, and then you can decide, wow, I didn't get it, I can't find a demo for this game on the eShop, but now that there's one included here and I've tried out, this is actually really cool. I think I'm going to go and get this game. So it's kind of win-win for Nintendo, and it's just really neat for gamers who pick this game up. Maybe you're really young and this is the Wii U is your first Nintendo system,
Good
and you're going
point.
to get your first time trying these classic games from the 80s, 90s that you weren't really interested in. You're like, oh yeah, they've got some chunky graphics in the eShop. I'm not going to buy any of those games. But now it will be very accessible, and it'll give you a chance to see how these old games were and where these games' roots were created and what they've become today. It's just like, I'm really looking forward to that quite a bit. It's basically NES remix without the remix, is what it sounds like, but I'm pretty stoked for it.
Yeah, and the great point that I thought you brought up was just the fact that there's a lot of kids out there that didn't grow up with these games and are going to be open to these franchises, series, and characters through Smash Brothers, like Mega Man, and they're going to get to play like Mega Man 2 for 3 or 4 minutes, and that's a short time, but they may be like, hey, this game's really awesome, and guess what? Mega Man 2 is really awesome, so they'll go out and buy it, and they can, have this love of Mega Man 2 and 3 and future installments in the series like I do, and share that. And it's a win-win. I not only for people like you, Noah, who want this like museum, but opening it up to new audiences, and then obviously for Nintendo because it is like an eShop marketing strategy that they're doing a good job of. We saw it in NES Remix and NES Remix 2 and everything, and it's very smart and clever.
Yeah. Now let's get into the bonuses that occur if you purchase both the 3DS and the Wii U version of Smash. This is something that we've been talking about in recent weeks. Who's going to get it? And we've heard from a lot of you. And I think of the people who've been writing in, the consensus seems to be there are a lot of people out there who have purchased the 3DS version and they're all going to get the Wii U version. I don't
Yeah.
remember as many instances of people like me, lame land apparently, who are just waiting for the Wii U version. But Nintendo, in an effort to get people like me off the fence and get both versions of this game, have offered a couple incentives. The first of which we were already familiar with, which was if you purchase both games, you will get a 2 CD soundtrack, including all the, I think, all, if not a lot of the music from both the 3DS version of Smash and the Wii U version of Smash, which is quite a treat because the Smash Brothers games, ever since the GameCube version, have included incredible rearrangements, remixes, orchestral versions of classic songs from Nintendo games past, and that you can actually customize so much how music is used in the game. You can pick what songs show up in the menu. You can pick what songs show up in the levels. You can say how frequently they come, and that you can actually get that soundtrack versus having to try to track it down and download it from somewhere or just watch a chain of YouTube videos, which is usually what I do for Nintendo games because that's the only place I can get the soundtrack. So that's kind of a neat incentive. It's a little bit of a steep incentive when you're thinking like, well, that's basically it's $100 to get a CD set, but DLC is also being introduced as an incentive. If you purchase both versions of the game at a later date, you will be given Mewtwo as a downloadable character. So the roster of Smash Brothers Wii U, at least, maybe on 3DS as well, but for now, at least for Wii U, will be expanding via DLC, and you can get Mewtwo for free, which a lot of people were ecstatic about on Twitter and in the stream of comments that were going on next to the video player during the direct. What was your reaction to this, Evan?
Well, I'm like you. I guess we're lame and old and not buying both versions, so I'm not going to get Mewtwo. But it was really exciting, and it confirms. First off, I'm excited for all the people that wanted Mewtwo, and there's some really awesome videos of people watching the Nintendo Direct live and just flipping out with excitement. And I think that, like, always is just brings a smile to my face. But secondly, it just means that they're going to support this game with post-game content in a major way, and I think Mewtwo is just kind of the tip of the iceberg with what characters we could see coming, and I'm really excited to see what they bring up next, because this is probably a stretch, but you're bringing up the masterpieces and people being introduced to new games. There's so many Castlevania games on the eShop. It'd be so cool to see Simon Belmont join Super Smash Brothers, or just any other cool old character, and that third-party characters, like I said, may be a stretch, but it's this Smash Brothers game. First off, it's huge, but some of the modes we talked about, they're kind of adding functionality to them post-game. They're obviously not everything's going to be up at release, and it just has me really excited that not only is Smash going to be just the typical Sakurai full of content and experience when it ships, but this game is going to continue to be updated with good content.
Yeah, and that enthusiasm is the exact same joy that I got out of Mario Kart 8 getting really cool DLC really soon. Actually, we were first said I think it's coming within the next month, and
Yeah.
just like, this is great. I'm so used to Nintendo first party games. They're these concentrated, contained little masterpieces, and they are great. And you get all these memories to them, but they never grow, they never add or get things added into them, and they're usually so fantastic. You're not wanting for content or like, oh, this game really needed DLC. There wasn't enough. Nintendo first party games often are just so satisfying, but that we're getting that same level of quality and just the games are going on and we're getting that type of dedication from the developers is really exciting, and it's a seller, I think, of the software, and just I think will also improve the relationship and the affinity that Nintendo fans have with Nintendo, because like, wow, you're making all these great games that are already awesome even better by providing all this additional content, whether it's going to be new courses and vehicles and characters in Mario Kart 8, or I'm going to assume not only new characters but possibly also new stages in Super Smash Brothers. But I can't wait to see. I'm not the biggest Mewtwo fan, so for me
Yeah.
that was like, oh my gosh, I'm now sold on 3. I was like, who cares, Mewtwo? Don't care.
Yeah, I'd rather
But
just pay a couple of dollars to unlock them than pay $40 for the 3DS version.
yeah, exactly. And I've got my fingers crossed that we're going to see some additional. I don't know how many, because when Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out, that was a game that I'm like, oh, they're going to have DLC characters. And they ended up releasing like 4. And it's like, oh, that was such a disappointment. And there are already a ton of characters in Smash for Wii U.
Yeah.
And Sakurai has mentioned time and again how difficult it is to balance these characters and make sure that there isn't some major weakness in one versus the others. So I don't know how many they're going to be, but still, that just means an ongoing train of surprises for those of us who get Smash Brothers for Wii U going into at least the next year. So fingers crossed for
Yeah,
the
and it'll be curious to see how not only that, but like you said, I think Mewtwo's coming to 3DS and Wii U, but they were kind of vague, but it'll be interesting to see if one version like if the 3DS eventually kind of falls out of favor of DLC because the competitive community and
mm,
everyone else is out of the Wii U. And could that mean the resurrection of fan favorites like Ice Climbers coming
yeah.
back for the Wii U version and stuff? Where if they get to the point where they're just like, you know what? 3DS version did well, but where the community is staying is with the Wii U. So why don't we just start doing stuff that's only possible on the Wii U in regard to characters? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's a possibility going forward. So they could bring back some favorites like that, as well as Simon Belmont and Professor Layton or Phoenix Wright. And there's so many cool third-party things they could do. But yeah, we're being greedy. We're having our
Yeah.
cake and wanting to eat it too. But the whole thing just it Sakurai is just amazing at what he's able to fit into a game. I think we've joked about in the past. I'm sure you've heard other places like if Sakurai made Mario Kart, there would be like 150 tracks in each version and like 100 characters and just all these different modes and everything. Just
Mm.
what he brings to the Super Smash Bros. Games, and even its individual games like Kid Icarus Uprising, which just has so much to do in it. It's just incredible, and that's why it makes me. Not only is it packed full of content, but it's so much fun, and that's why he's one of my favorite developers out there.
Oh, and the other thing that I have to mention it because he's sitting back behind me, but we finally got to see a character reveal for Bowser Jr., which at first I was thinking this is kind of weird because we've known about Bowser Jr. because Bowser Jr. is in the 3DS version of the game, but there was a surprise twist in the reveal video that not only can you play as Bowser Jr., but all of the Koopalings also are available as alternate skins for Bowser Jr. in the Koopa Copter or the Koopa Car or whatever it's called. And that just really got me excited because it's like, yes, I can play as Roy again in another game, which is really cool. So it's maybe having him sitting behind me has been a good luck charm for that. But it also means that if we were all playing on a very large couch playing 8-player, we could have all the Koopalings present and accounted for and just trying to destroy each other in their Koopacopters. It would be so cool. So,
Yeah, and one thing to touch on briefly that's really cool that since I railed against Nintendo on the voice chat, but in another online aspect, it's really neat that they're letting know if we were together. and the same couch, we could go online together and do team battles against two other people. I think that's always a
That
cool
is
feature
cool.
when you can do two players locally go online together and play. So I give a big thumbs up to that. That was an exciting announcement. I don't know how much I'll get to use it, but I know like back in college, especially, I'd always look for that. That's why Mario Strikers Charge for the Wii lets you do that as well, which was always awesome. So it's looking great. I'm glad I waited for the Wii U version because the Wii U version looks like it's kicking the 3DS version's butt in regard to content and everything else as well. Maybe this is why they had the 3DS version released first now, because
Yeah.
no one would have wanted to downgrade after the fact.
I thought that exact thought while I was watching the direct last week. It's just between the presentation already being fantastic. I mean, one of the first things that they noted was look at how much more gigantic the screen resolution is as compared to the resolution for the 3DS version. And just like it's clear to me how much and how many in so many ways how the Wii version is going to be superior to the 3DS version. It's like it's a pure shrewd marketing decision to say, you know what, we shouldn't release these side by side potentially. I mean, let's not think about the whole install base and how many people actually have a
Yeah.
3DS versus Wii U. But yeah, this version for people who have both systems, if the Wii U version had come out first, I bet the 3DS version's sales would have potentially been negatively impacted. For those of us who have both systems and could have purchased both games, if we got the Wii U version first, we're like, that's great. I don't really need to take it on the road. I love playing it on the Wii U because there's so much cool stuff in it. So, aside from our issues with the voice chat, which if you've been listening to us over the years, you knew we were going to talk about it. I think it was a very cool direct, and it just reinforced my enthusiasm and my excitement for the game. Looking forward to a lot of stuff in there, and I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to play online with Evan and hopefully with some of the folks out there in the audience.
NF Show tournament.
Yeah, NF Show tournament. Like we could have a bracket where you go up against Lucas and Don and all the other writers. That would be pretty sweet. So let us know what you think. That's all we're going to say about the direct. We are unfortunately running a little bit long. It's probably because I'm hosting and I just talk. But now it is time for the feedback section, which Evan is going to take over. Go for it, Evan.
All right, don't forget that you can get into our feedback section by emailing us at show@nfmagazine.com or commenting on YouTube. So much to talk about, whether it's with Smash Brothers or what you're playing, especially now that we're getting into the busy holiday season. So be sure to write in. We love going through your feedback. But let's start with an email from Variable Man. This is a new person writing in, which is always exciting.
Yeah.
Who says, "Hey guys, I've been listening to the show for several months now and look forward to the audio version each and every Wednesday. Thank you so much."
Thank you.
Variable Man goes on and says, "I have a crazy theory about the new 3DS release date for North America. What if they're holding back the release so that it can come bundled with a new Metroid Prime game by Retro? Haven't Metroid titles traditionally sold better in North America than Japan? Also, would Xenoblade Chronicles really push sales in this country? Just a thought. Also, as for minor Super Mario characters who deserve their own titles, I'd vote for Bob-omb. Perhaps a game that revolves around using swarms of them, like Noah was describing for Shy Guy, or a stealth game featuring Nabbit."
Oh, that Nabbit idea is totally awesome. And actually, a game where you threw bombs everywhere or they swarmed things to blow stuff up would also be very cool. So those are fantastic ideas. And as far as the timing of the 3DS launch, it is kind of weird. And you know what's kind of interesting to me, Evan, is that people in Australia often they're like often the very last territory to get anything from hardware to games and stuff. And they actually got it at the same time as Japan did. The launch was kind of a regional launch on that part of the earth. And she's like, wow, that's kind of cool for them. And I would love to think, like Variable Man is suggesting, that there's some kind of super cool marketing conspiracy in the background and they're going to tie it together with something. But I think there's actually enough excitement for all of the things that the new 3DS offers from a hardware perspective, from a technological perspective, that they don't really need to bundle it. So I'm feeling like it's probably more of a supply and demand issue and just how much they can crank out. And they went with the markets where they figured they'd get the most bang for the buck in the holiday season, which in Japan, it's pretty strong. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Evan?
Yeah, I can't see a retro 3DS game going. I think they're dedicated home console development team, and if there's going to be a Metroid Prime game, that would be on a home console, not on the 3DS. I think if we see a Metroid game, we'll see kind of a throwback to the 2D adventure games. So I feel like that's very unlikely, even though it'd be really awesome Variable Man. But I do want to say that I love your Super Mario character spin-off ideas, especially the stealth game featuring Nabbit. It's so
Yeah.
cool. And I think we got some other ideas for Nintendo side characters getting their own games, and it makes you think, like, Nintendo gets a lot of criticism, like you're using the same franchises over and over again, but I think little eShop experiences, like $3 to $5 eShop experiences with some of these characters in these mini games would be really cool and really popular. So I wonder if it's
Mhm.
something that Nintendo's explored or thinking of. Our next email comes from Nintendo Dad, who says, I just wrapped up Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright and enjoyed it very much. It took me nearly 40 hours to get through. I played
Oh,
I've played several games in both series, but consider myself more a Phoenix Wright fan than Layton. Pros of Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright. Frequently switches between the Layton style gameplay and Phoenix Wright gameplay, which eliminates the fatigue I usually start to feel midway through the standalone games.
Mhm.
Has a story that's every bit as outlandish as a normal Layton game. Adds the ability to cross-examine multiple witnesses simultaneously, which was different. Some of the best post-game content I have ever seen in a game. The characters look back on the making of the game as if they were actors. It's brilliant.
That is so cool.
Now the cons. Most of the latent puzzles are trial and error, which are much less rewarding than logic puzzles. And Phoenix gets the short end of the stick in that he's made to look like he's barely competent, while Layton is made to look like he should be the attorney instead. Overall, though, it's a fantastic game that I'd recommend to anyone that has an interest in either series.
I just wanted to say I love it when folks in the audience send in their reviews of games. So keep doing them, Nintendo Dad. That was an excellent assessment of the game that I actually haven't had a chance to play yet, and you've gotten me even more excited about it with some of the stuff that you noted. Although I also would have to agree that I would take issue with Phoenix Wright being made to look incompetent, and it just makes me think, well, it's like, oh, of course, Professor Layton has that lovely English accent, and that just automatically gives him +2 smart points. And you'd be like, oh, yep, he's got all the logic figured out, and Phoenix Wright's just stumbling upon things and hoping for luck to just fall into his lap, and then he gets through the round. Like, no, they're both very cool.
Layton is very condescending, isn't he?
He, we both like him so much. It's hard to be critical.
Yeah, it is hard. But critical thinking is the key to success now.
Very,
So.
that's what we totally should have called this episode.
Our next email is from Hayawada, who has a story of his 5-year-old daughter in Super Smash Brothers that's really cool. He says, my 5-year-old daughter's experience with Smash Brothers started when she asked if she could play it on my 3DS XL instead of playing Temple Run on the smartphone that she was currently using. I set all of the CPU characters to level 1 and put her on a character select screen before I handed over my 3DS. She was able to win a few matches and she enjoyed the variety of stages. She laughed out loud every time a fighter got knocked into the screen. She wanted to be whoever the winner of the last match was. She thought that the grown-up fighters were better than the children fighters, and she especially enjoyed attacking me when we played together. I loaded up the demo on my old 3DS and we played it together. It was a pretty big deal to not have all the characters available. I'm considering renting a 3DS cartridge of Super Smash Bros. Just so we can play together until the Wii U version is released. While playing Super Smash Bros. Together, she burst out into nearly uncontrollable laughter several times. I even taught her how to plant a tree with a villager. I told my brother about it, and he has his kids playing it too. With 8-player Smash on Wii U, our entire family would be able to play together with her cousin's family and still have room for one more.
I have to say, doesn't Hiawatha sound like such a cool dad, Evan?
Yeah, sounds awesome.
I love these stories that he shares about sharing new games with his kids, and it's so cool. And to hear them as they're getting better and they're getting into more challenging games, I feel like we're getting this cool little look into the birth of a gamer. And as she's going to be like a pro Smash Brothers gamer here in like 10 years. You watch, it'll happen.
Yeah, and I guess Hiawatha answers my criticisms about not having anyone to play with locally. I guess no, we just both have to have kids. That's our only option right now. It's Nintendo games.
Wow, that is quite the plan Nintendo has set for us.
I know. Very demanding of them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for Hiawatha. I
Yes.
definitely agree with Noah. It's so much fun to hear about experiences playing with your kids and playing Nintendo games with them. It's really cool to hear. We're going to move on to the comments section. Old School 1990s said the 50 new things in Smash video was spectacular. After the Amazon link, I was unsure what was left to be shown.
Hmm.
There was so much stuff, though, it was crazy. This game seems to be a labor of love for Sakurai and his team. I think where 95% of developers put a stop, Sakurai said, no. We are making the ultimate game with nothing left out. Nothing. I am currently playing Fantasy Life Bayonetta 2 and Captain... Oh, sorry, I was thinking he was playing Captain Toad. Theatrhythm Curtain Call. I'm taking my time with Bayonetta. I really like to savor and digest each level and its stunning visuals. Fantasy Life seems like a great game so far. I picked a Wizard's Life to start out with, and Curtain Call is still amazing as well.
Yeah, I tell you what, I've got to get Curtain Call. Still haven't done it.
You
Mm.
really do. People, I don't think there's barely been one negative thing said about that game, and I feel like the critiques across the web have been super positive of it as well.
And it's really neat that we're actually getting some fresh and new ongoing impressions for both Fantasy Life and hopefully Bayonetta 2. There's a lot of folks who mentioned they were getting the game since it just came out, so I'm looking
I,
forward to hearing what other people say.
yeah, I'm surprised you didn't get Bayonetta 2.
Yeah, my personal life has just gotten a little busy,
Yeah.
and I don't have as much game time, so I might actually be saving Bayonetta to see if I might be saving her for the holidays, but we'll see how everything shakes out.
Yeah, and Fantasy Life for me, I continue to play it. I'm going to bring a lot more impressions with next week's show since we had so much Super Smash Brothers talk to go over. Our next comment is from the Seventh Experiment. I can't agree with you guys more about the great need for a Miiverse app and a Nintendo eShop app. Guess I wasn't around when you guys talked about this before, but I'm happy to hear it because I've been thinking that to myself every single time I visit Miiverse. Wow, I bet you get angry a lot, Seventh Experiment. I'd love to give you guys some of my impressions about Fantasy Life, which I just picked up yesterday. Awesome. I'm really loving it so far. The world is cute and charming. It's a little slow in the beginning, I have to admit. But yes, Evan, I completely agree with you about the clever writing in Fantasy Life. I adore the dialogue. My first character is a mage, and I'm looking forward to some of the gathering classes, like fishing.
So it seems like there are almost just as many people getting into Fantasy Life as those who'd gotten into Curtain Call earlier.
Yeah, and what's really cool to see with Fantasy Life is how everyone's picking different classes. Like I'm a hunter, and we've now got a wizard, and oh, two wizards, I guess. The mage is probably the wizard's class, unless I'm mixing those up, but I don't think I am. There's 12 classes, which is really neat, and I feel like it's a huge game. Let alone if you just pick one character class, the fact that you could actually play all 12 is just really neat. Our next comment comes from Sonic Tonic, who says, Evan, you had me cracking up more than once in this episode. Between your Toad impression and your statement about the 3DS XL being more mature and comfortable with its body, I was laughing so hard. Until Sonic Tonic wrote in this comment, I totally forgot that we publicly did our Toad voices.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, because I read Sonic Talks, I'm like, did we do that in front of Don? It's like Don just kind of sat there while we did Toad voices. Like,
But
how weird is that?
it was when he got disconnected. And that's what I was thinking too. I was like, Dom was on last week, and I forgot that he got disconnected. And then I forgot that I feel like we've done Toad voices off the air in the past, but we've never gone so far to throw them out there into the realm of public criticism. So I'm glad people enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Sonic Tonic continues, as for the new 3DS, I'll definitely be getting the smaller one, with the faceplates being the primary reason. I really love my 3DS XL, but the customizable aspect of the new 3DS is just too cool. And since the smaller screen has such squished pixels, at least the resolution quality will be nice and sharp. I actually do own and enjoy the Game Boy Micro on occasion, so I think I can get used to downsizing. Plus, with all the awesome designs and textures for the faceplates, maybe I'll even save money by not feeling the need to buy every 3DS XL special edition that comes out.
I think the thing that excites me the most about those faceplates is there actually are ones with different textures that you can have a felt one, that you can have a wood one. That is just so cool. And I can't wait to try that out in real life. I'm definitely jealous of Don being able to have all these cool faceplates and stuff. And I've read a couple of reviews, I think, since we talked about it last week. And
Hmm.
I'm definitely leaning more towards the small, much like Evan, though I do want to have a chance to get it in my hands and see what it's like, see what the big one. Hopefully there will be demo units available somewhere at a Best Buy or GameStop or Walmart or whatever. But I'm leaning towards the small one for sure.
Awesome. Our next comment comes from Nintendo Dude GCN. Nice Toad impressions, guys. I can't deny trying out a Toad impression myself. That's awesome. Please let us know how many of you tried out your Toad impression after
Yeah,
listening to us last week. As for what Toad says when getting the double cherry, it sounds like mummify or doublify to me.
Doublify. I love it.
Do you want to try doublify in your Toad voice?
Uh, it's so high. Doublify. Doublify. That's how I would do it.
I'm with the Nintendo dude. I'm thinking about getting the new 3DS. I've never been a big on the XL models, actually. I've preferred the smaller DSs. Add in the changeable faceplates and the awesome color scheme for the buttons. The new 3DS wins out over the new 3DS XL for me. I like your train of thought on the Shy Guy games, Noah. I'm an avid Shy Guy fan. Your discussion about the your discussion about the unappreciated Mario characters made me think of something. What if Nintendo created some sort of Mario villains game? I don't really have a particular genre in mind, but I think some sort of adventure where you could be Waluigi, Birdo, Shy Guy, Dry Bones, Hammer Brothers, Boo, etc. would be awesome.
That's actually a very killer idea. I would love it if it were actually an action game. Somewhere I think that it would almost be even a more of a natural fit is maybe if they made a Mario and Luigi game, much like they did with Bowser's Inside Story, and they allowed you to play as Bowser for a while. If there were a Paper Mario game where Mario and Luigi are stymied or held back in some way, and you have to just work with the villains because they have some reason that they need to get restore order, the karmic balance or whatever, and they need to go and get Mario and Luigi back. That would be so cool. Yes, definitely a great idea.
And I kind of stealing from two of our viewers slash listeners, I think you could mix Boo or King Boo and put him into a stealth game, kind of like what
Oh
I think it was
yeah.
Variable Man wanted to do with Nabbit. I think the Boos would be really cool for a stealth game, flying between walls and making sure you're not seen. So you don't have to hold your eyes shut and cry. So I think there's so many possibilities they could do, which is really cool. Our next comment comes from Kasaki Project. Wii U indie game recommendation for everyone. Pierre Solar is an awesome 16-bit style JRPG. It was originally designed for the Genesis as a homebrew and earned a cult status. The HD update just hit the PlayStation Store network. I picked it up for PS4, admittedly, but it's coming to Wii U this week, and I have to recommend it. It has perfectly captured the 16-bit RPG charm. It's just delightful and whimsical with art reminiscent of late 1980s and early 1990s anime. The battle system has some similarities with Bravely Default in that you can skip turns to charge your attacks. The game has great audio-visual presentations as well. You can change the graphics to 16-bit, HD, and HD+, and have the updated soundtrack or an original 16-bit soundtrack. My
Cool.
only complaints are that it's a bit obtuse in the level design and giving you new directions. So for people that might want a more streamlined JRPG, you may want to use the game facts here and there. Overall, though, I put 9 hours into it in 2 days. I love it.
I remember hearing about this game years ago and checking out screenshots of it online and thinking, wow, that's really cool. That totally reminds me of some Super Nintendo RPGs. So thank you for bringing this to our attention, Kiseki Project, so that all of us out there know that it's actually coming because it's easy for games like those to get kind of lost in the shuffle unless you're constantly going to the eShop homepage and checking out the upcoming promotions. So very cool recommendation.
Definitely. Our next comment comes from Weston M. Yikes, 8.5 intensity is pretty hard in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS, and the secret boss's last form is incredibly difficult. And on top of that, there are other forms as well. I've returned to online in the game and it actually is working really, really good. There was only the occasional hiccup, but it was done very well and convinced me to keep trying online out. Poor Smash Run is sitting there in the dust. Smash 3DS has proven to be a game that continuously improves over time, and I look forward to the future as well as the Wii U version. I am really jealous of Dawn right now. I want a new 3DS XL as well. I prefer the large screen and don't mind the lack of swappable covers for it. The improved 3D is a huge positive as I had given up on it long ago, but it seems like it is time to revisit certain games once I get one.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about going back to games, especially ones that have tilt controls, and
Mm-hmm.
seeing how much better they can be with this updated 3D.
Yeah, and Weston's the first person to say they're going with the new 3DS XL instead of the swappable faceplates do nothing for him. And I'm still on the fence. I like the look of the new 3DS, but I've gotten so accustomed to the XL. But I will admit the
Yeah.
XL is the added weight and everything to it isn't the most comfortable thing to hold, especially over long periods of time. I don't have like I'd say I have average hands, maybe but not huge. So
Show us
maybe.
your hands.
Oh, there we go.
We're on video, so you might as well.
Yeah. Um, I guess I'll need to do scale next time. I can get a controller or whatever. But I am so on the fence. So I'm leaning new 3DS, and I'll say I'm actually probably leaning that way as well. If only Nintendo had an account system where I could just keep both, and if I want an XL experience, I could keep my XL and the new 3DS. So fingers crossed. Maybe Nintendo's waiting for the new account system. Maybe that's the secret.
That's what it is.
Could be. You never know. Come on, let's be optimistic.
I'm totally optimistic.
Yeah. People not watching the video feed just missed your incredibly obvious eye roll right there. Just to let everyone know. So
Don't
listen
worry, I
on.
left the camera on Evan, so nobody saw it at all.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad I pointed it out. Our last comment comes from Brandon J. Recently got Hulu Plus, and they have had a few different commercials for Nintendo games, mainly the Settle and Smash commercial. So it's cool to hear Nintendo's hitting the airwaves with some messaging for Smash. And we also saw that Bayonetta 2 has its own commercial now as well. So it's cool to see. And I feel like the commercials are pretty well done. I've liked them a lot more this year compared to last year with the like kids, like why we need to upgrade and stuff like that.
Yeah, the infomercial as provided by the 10-year-olds.
Yeah, so I feel like Nintendo's on course more with their marketing than they have been in the past. They were kind of swinging and missing a lot. I'll just throw out as many sports metaphors as possible, make it as confusing as possible. But that is all for the feedback. Thank you all so much for the comments and emails, and can't wait to see what you have to say about this episode next week.
Thank you very much, Evan, for taking us on that journey. And thank you for everybody who wrote in the comments, just like Evan said. We look forward to hearing from you and going through your feedback, both emails and comments next week. We hope you liked this episode. Let us know what you think of it. You can subscribe to us on YouTube and on iTunes. Everything is working okay. Feel free to leave us a review in iTunes if you like. And you can also follow us on Twitter. Evan's Twitter is at Evan Campbell. I am
That's
at
right.
Noah. And he's really serious about getting followers. I think he's feeling lonely. And the official NF Magazine Twitter is, of course, at Nintendo Force. So we would love to see you out there in Twitterland. And if not, we'll just look forward to talking to you and hearing from you on next week's show. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.